Well, if you can't already tell, we got Max Lewis on the podcast talking about food and Greece. So why don't you open up the podcast with the best food spots in Toronto if you're, working a late night hockey
That's an
game or
impossible
something.
question.
Well, I mean, that's
Give
not
me
an impossible
3.
question because, I mean, it goes without saying that anyone who knows me knows that people like to say I love souvlaki, but anyone who knows me knows that, assuming that there's no COVID and the hockey season's going on, there's a stretch between Finch and Shepherd. There's a road called Chesswood, and we got 2 rinks there. And anyone knows me knows that you could probably find me at least once or twice a week at California Sandwiches, getting my chicken with cheese and onions.
That's the number one.
That's number one. That's not number one only best spot, but also that's the best California sandwiches in the city. And
X2.
X2, I'd say honestly, and I know Will's going to give me flack for this, but if you're in Scarborough late night on a weekend, especially Mama's Boys burgers, souvlaki. I know Will did not like the burger.
Dude, Mama was there. Mama was there and didn't show up to the plate. Struck out.
Struck out looking. No, I understand, but I mean, you got a burger, right?
Yeah, I got the burger. That one.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Mama burger,
but
wasn't too good.
I mean, the souvlaki for me is what I get every time. You can't go wrong with that.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to screw up chicken and rice, but I mean, they do a good job. And then I'm trying to think, the third place, honestly, I mean, in the West End.
Don't say Masters.
No. No, yeah, Master Steaks. Why not?
All right, there it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like an hour-long drive from my house. So
yeah.
It's not really.
Well, Master Steaks is the type of place you go and they're like, do you want chicken with your tzatziki? You know what I mean? Not the other way around. So those are probably, if I had to pick 3 places near rinks, spread out across the city. But yeah, COVID or not COVID, I've still been going to California Sandwiches.
So now that we got the important conversation out and done at the beginning of the podcast, why don't we jump in, Max? Like, what do you do? Who are you? How'd you meet us? Give us a little summary of
what do I do?
Of what you do, buddy.
A lot of people ask me that, and I usually don't give them a straight answer. What do I do? Well, I'll start first where I met you guys, obviously, Ryerson Sport Media. I had a great 4 years, lots of fun, lots of good people, lots of fun things happened. And I'd say what I do, at least in the capacity I work with Will, is that we kind of started, maybe I guess it was December of 2017 where we kind of met.
Tell that story.
Yeah, so we met through a mutual friend. You got to jog my memory because I don't remember fully the story, but I know mutual friend, one of my good friends, and the guy Josh Hendel, had told me that you were in a group and kind of interested in video. And meanwhile, I was working over at, and I still work there at the GTHL, kind of writing articles. But we had talked there about maybe making the next step to video. And, I didn't know, that's all I knew was they want to do video, but I didn't know how to shoot video. So I was kind of asking around. Asked a couple people, they were kind of, interested. They're like, "Why is that minor hockey? Working, and I got it's Max. He doesn't take Domino's Flyers. He doesn't take anything seriously." So then I kind of was connected to you, and that relationship built in the sense that we met, kind of went to the gym a bit a couple times. We didn't really know each other that well, and it was a little awkward at the beginning. You were obviously, like you are with your conversational skills and
oh god
and you obviously got a lot better, and me with my lack of tact. So
it's like when Max came to my house for the first time for like some sleepover before a shoot. I'm like, yeah, welcome in, there's my mom, blah blah. He goes straight to the kitchen after saying hi to my mom, opens the fridge and starts like rummaging in for like, he's like, oh, what do you got here?
I only know comfort. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know not doing that. So what I do remember, and you could tell me, your side, but I remember because you live, Will lives, kind of eastern part of the city, and the rink we were working at is kind of near Dansview Park. And I remember I went to a Hungarian restaurant and I was just having like a leisurely meal. And I'm like, oh wait, I got to go pick Will up all the way there and come all the way back to the rink. So I remember we were late getting to the rink. You know, that would be a constant theme for us. And then I remember we had no idea what we were doing. Like it was for to people just to fill people in. It was the top prospects game, the GTHL. So all the best players in the minor midget year going into the OHL draft, and you got kids like Jamie Drysdale and Cole Perfetti, and kids are now first round picks in the NHL. And I guess Will had also played in the GTHL along with me. We played on different teams, but I think
humble brag.
Well, I mean, just saying the GTHL, it's not saying where.
Really.
Yeah,
I know it's big for you. Small town,
yeah.
like what 25,000 people. Like it's a little different. I know you guys have like two levels, but yeah.
Mose, there's just one feeder team, one competitive team. You
gotta go travel team.
I actually think they wanted to make the jump this year, and it was just like, well, you're paying $5,000 to $10,000 for hockey already. Like, add flights on that. Like, what do you?
Well, yeah, fly out to Minnesota and stuff like that, and Michigan. Yeah. Go to the Northern Peninsula for a weekend. That sounds like fun. But I remember I covered the game before, like writing it, and I remember I got one shooter. And I remember, Will, you can jump in here. You were borrowing a friend's camera, I believe.
Yeah, because I only had this old starter DSLR, so I was like, it can't even shoot slow motion at 1080p. So I got to borrow my friend Ryan's camera. It shot slow motion 1080p, 60 FPS, and I didn't really know how to use it properly. So I think we showed up a bit late. I was scrambling, and I ended up shooting the whole thing at 720p, 60 FPS, which is just terrible quality.
It's bad.
So bad. And we tried shooting stuff. We had no idea what we're doing. I just met Adrian for the first time, zero planning. We just went in there and you told me which guys to shoot, and the video was terrible to be honest.
I remember too, me being the eternal optimist, I'd look by and you show me a shot, I'd be like, it's amazing, it's great. And it was in the sense that they had never put anything out before, so anything we were going to put out was great. But I remember coming back to your place and we were editing, and just I remember we actually, we just interviewed Wendell Clark, and we threw in, he had a great quote we threw in at the beginning of the video, and you got some, you ripped some music from online, SoundCloud, I think. And we just put this video out.
Copywritten. It was just Odessa. It was just completely copywritten. I'm fuck it.
Yeah. So, and then I was just yeah, I mean, that was that first video, but I was I remember thinking this is great. I mean, and you were kind of into it, and I knew you wanted to.
It was terrible. I thought that video was bad, and I was what does this mean for the future? And it was when I was considering to get a new camera.
Oh no, but I mean, you were still excited. I remember
I was still excited about working, and it blew me away how good the players were. When it was probably, I haven't played hockey at that time for 2-3 years, so I haven't been in the rink for that old smell, and it brought back nostalgia. And then I'm watching the kids play. I'm these kids would outskate me, and I'm whatever, 21, and they're 15, and that kind of blew me away. It got me really interested in shooting it. And I think what kickstarted everything, it was obviously you hitting me up, and I took that opportunity, but the optimism and drive from Adrian, who I think we've all worked with and all know, is what I think set our careers on fire. And just when we hit 2018, that January all the way down that whole year, it was constant work. Adrian was really facilitating us to make the best quality stuff possible, and was paying us handsomely. So I give a lot of credit to Adrian.
And I gotta I should probably take it back a year. So I mean, we all came to the program. Mose, I think you came right out of high school.
I did.
And Will and I think we took the more circuitous route. I took a year off. Honestly, what's funny was my brother took a year off to play hockey, and everyone I was oh, I'm going to take a year off, because I applied to Ryerson journalism, and I applied to Ryerson journalism, didn't get in, and I didn't have because they wanted you guys remember that portfolio and stuff. I didn't have any work done, and I was I'll take a year off, and everyone was well, you're only taking a year off because your brother did. I'm well, yeah, of course, I wouldn't have thought of doing it unless he did. And actually through him, I was connected to, the guy who I still work with, and Will, and I think Mose met Peter McGinnis, who runs the Domino's Flyers. And he basically said, hey, we want to start doing social media. We want to start doing photography. we'll buy you a camera. Can you run the social media for the Don Mills Flyers? And I was like, well, sure. And through him, I kind of was introduced to people at the GTHL, and Brendan, who used to work at the GTHL in Adrian's position before. He was introduced to me, and he said, "You want to start writing for us? Maybe writing recaps of games and writing the recap for the Top Prospects game." And for me, I always played the GTHL at a high level, but also, knowing guys who played the next level. That was like, you guys know, and I get ribbed for it all the time, but I love watching the minor hockey because you like seeing where the guys start before they make it big. And that's kind of how I got my feet into the industry, got my feet wet. And it was kind of that from Brendan. Adrian came in because Brendan moved on to the NHL, and we met Adrian, and that's kind of where that relationship started. And then obviously we started making videos, and to be honest, we've been doing that since. And we loved, we love doing it and work for the GTHL.
Yeah, like let's go into like you following the Don Mills Flyers, and like let's go into like building relationships with those kids. Namely speaking, this last, or was it the 2018-2019 season with the Don Mills Flyers 03 team, which had Shane Wright, Othman, Arnsby, all these like top players. Can you talk about like how you've gone about building relationships, not just with like young players going into, their junior career and into the NHL, but also like the coaches, parents, and the people surrounding the game, and how that set you and I up for like a lot of opportunity?
Yeah, I think, obviously going in, when I went in, the year I started, like there wasn't, it's, obviously, and there wasn't really like the age gap. Like I obviously like take photos of all the kids playing and like just send them to parents and stuff, post them on social media. But, the main focus is the older kids. And also when I started, I was only a year older, 2 years older than the kids. And even then, like, only a couple years older. So to be that close in age and kind of connecting with them and having played the game, they kind of, it's funny because most of them, they didn't know I played hockey or that I knew about hockey. So they kind of, they would be talking, before the game with each other, and I kind of jump in. They'd be surprised, that I knew stuff. And then with this group that you're talking about, the 2003 age group, we had a team that was, a special team in the sense that, probably have 4 or 5 kids might go play in the NHL. And the fact that, I kind of saw them grow up and kind of mature, and like, was able to kind of support them, go on the ice with them, and kind of be another lane of support. And obviously they loved, love getting photos on the ice and stuff. Building those relationships kind of paid dividends for us, and that, we can ask them, to maybe shoot content with them now, or as now some of them are getting ready to get drafted in the NHL next year. Like if we say, hey, we want to shoot something with you, we want to shoot an interview, shoot you at the rink, because of that relationship we built, and the familiarity they know, and the fact that we've already done interviews with them, that they're going to be excited to, to do that and willing to do that with us. So I think that's something that has paid off. And, and also just the fact that you get to know these kids and you get to see them flourish at the next level, and it's great to see, and getting to know their families, it's great to see.
And I think you guys, before I got involved in like video with you, Max, like didn't you and Mose shoot that same team, but like the year, like can I hear about how that started? Because I don't really know.
I would love to hear the
video.
story again. This is comedy.
Well, I mean, first of all, like, let's be honest, like first year sport media, it's like, well, first of all, it's like, I like to compare, it was like 4 years of high school. I mean, you literally had one building where we had most of our classes. You had like 60 kids. You even had lockers. Like, you know what I mean? Like you got people using lockers. But I remember seeing Moses, like, this guy's wearing fake Yeezys and like a fake Supreme North Face jacket. Like, and I'm going to say it again to the thing, but that was steak and cheese from Subway,
Subway.
A trademark.
And that it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
3rd and 4th year, my God.
I mean, I hope, I don't know about the gear, but I know, the diet, at least first to 4th year, but I didn't really know Mose, but I'd heard he was a very good graphics guy. But, I also heard like, kind of like me, like, I would say aloof, like, I was on the ball in terms of responding, but, like kind of, interest wanes and goes up and down, like, and I remember like, obviously you guys know, everyone gives me heck for working for Don Mills, and, Don Mills Flyers. I used to get ribbed all the time, but we had these classes, these like TV labs, and we had to like make a whole show. And someone puts me as producer, so I'm like, well, what am I good at? What do I know? Well, Don Mills fired. So I remember I just called on Mose. And I was like, look, hey, I know I haven't really, mate, we don't really buzz, but let's give this a shot. Let's see, like, like I kind of, got him excited about the project, and I figured if he was excited, he put in the work. And honestly, like, we got interviews, we got photos, we went and shot video. Like,
Let's back up. Let's back up just for a quick sec because our first shoot did not go so well. So it was probably the middle of the week. We went out, a 4-person team. The first thing that stood out to me about this was I remember we had to go and shoot at night, and for whatever reason I was exhausted during the day. So we're going out to Don Mills to go shoot this. And I just remember almost falling asleep in the back of this car. We got a bunch of gear in it. We're packed into this little car, and as we're going, like, the route to this rink is not a straight path, and I just remember nodding off with my head on the window, and whoever was driving is trying to merge lanes.
Whoever was driving,
I don't know who was driving. It was either Calvin or
Max.
No, it wasn't Max. It was not Max. It wasn't Max. Max was riding passenger seat. If it was you, I would have sewered you right away. But I just remember kind of waking up mid-snooze on the way to the rink and just seeing that there was no space when we were merging with this car, and thinking to myself in that moment that we were going to die. So that was my first impression heading to this rink. And we get there and we go to shoot this game. And I remember we felt good about it. We had like 2 or 3 cameras. We were all set up. We were well prepared, which definitely was not the norm for this time and where we were with our production skills, but I felt great about it. We shot some footage. We had a couple different angles, and I just remember getting back to my apartment with Max and looking at the footage and saying, like, we can't use any of this.
No. I remember
we can use 0% of this. This is awful. Like, we didn't white balance the cameras. It was terrible.
I remember that because I was wearing like track pants, and then I just like wanted to do like a like when the broadcasters do like a live ender or whatever you call, like, where you just like recap the game. So I just brought my suit jacket, and I was just wearing track pants and my suit jacket. And you know what's funny? I remember like just doing it in the rink and people just staring at me, and like we couldn't even use that. And I remember after we went to go shoot a practice, and I think the only good thing about that day was we got California sandwiches, and you nearly, like, I remember your eyes when you saw the sandwich.
Our first time.
Yeah, that was our first time. I remember, took the retainer out to eat, and
and you placed it on a napkin, right? Or was it on the table?
But I remember him just kept saying the sandwich is so big. I was like, hey, if you keep talking on each other. For reference,
it was definitely bigger than my head. And this is not, I'm coming from Thunder Bay, so I've never seen this before.
Yeah. But I remember that practice too. Like we didn't bring extension cords, and we tried using those Lowell lights.
This is the story that I wanted to get to. This is hilarious.
Mo, do you want to tell it? I'll let you tell.
No, I would like you to tell it. I'll jump in. But
I remember we were doing these like draft profiles of these kids, and like we were shooting them in a stall, and like they were in their practice jerseys. I remember we just told them to wear their practice jerseys. It looked terrible. And we didn't white balance camera. And then like because the wire was so tight, it like fell, and like it stopped working. Like we had to 2 of the lights did stop working.
Yeah.
And we just like brought them back. We're like, yeah, like I don't know what happened. And they both.
So just for context, like we're shooting in the dressing room, right? And we get in the dressing room and we need to set up these lights. So we're looking for a plug, looking around. There's no plug in the dressing room. So we're like, well, we're Stewart. We can't like shoot in the hallway. It's noisy. It's busy. We got to do it in the dressing room. So we look outside and there's a plug right outside the door. And we're like, okay, great. Put the light in, ready to go. Bring the light into the room. But this cord is like in the doorway. And it kind of runs right between where the players are going to go walk to and shoot. So we set it up, and I remember like we're just like, okay, we just have to make sure that these kids don't trip over the cord. So we're kind of waiting for these kids to finish up practice, and we don't see the first batch of them kind of walking through. First kid trips over the court and just sewers our light. We have like these 3 lights that we've rented out that cost a lot of money, and now we're down to 2 lights. And I think these lights were rented out under your name. So I remember after we shoot the interview, we're kind of wrapping up, and you just look at me and you said, like, do you think that like the EDC, this place that we rent out the lights, do you think that they're gonna care that like the light doesn't turn on? And I'm like, well, I guess we're gonna find out.
I don't think they ever.
No, that never came back to us.
No.
We're not at Ryerson anymore. It's fine.
No,
We're not liable.
Yeah, exactly.
they're not liable.
We're done.
We're done. We're done.
That was our first big shoot together. I just remember I'll probably never forget that shoot.
That was big. That's a big shoot. Yeah, that was. We want to call it a big shoot. Yeah.
Well, that was for the feature you guys did, right?
Yeah, that was for.
It was a good feature.
No, that's the thing. That's where we pieced it together.
Yeah.
And it's funny about that. I always joke about that. Another good story, and I'm sure you guys. I'm actually not sure if Mose knows this story, but again, I mentioned my good friend Josh, and so we had another show, I think the next year, or maybe I think it might have been the end of that year. Like the end of the year, you do those big 30-minute shows, and we were doing a show, and me thinking like, oh, I've shot this stuff with Mose, like I know to shoot a feature, so I'm like, yeah, me and Josh will shoot a feature.
This was this year. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you remember this. Me and Josh, like, we'll shoot a feature on the year above the Don Mills Flyers captain. I'm like, oh, let's go back to Don Mills. Like, this has worked once, it's going to work again. Josh, and our other buddy Pat Gallagher, we shot a game, and I'm like producing it, and I'm like, yeah, you guys just ISO the player. No other shots, no expose, no ring shots, no coach bench. Just shoot the player, which is just terrible advice. So we shot a bit with the AC90s, those beautiful cameras they give us.
So much trouble.
So then me and Josh, we go out to Brampton to shoot their practice. We shoot the coach, and we shoot the kid, and he's the captain, and so we're just talking to him about leadership. And I remember shooting on my DSLR, and I'm like, that was terrible too. So like all the footage was terrible. So we shot it. I kind of left. I remember this. I went to go shoot one more game that night. It was a Tuesday night, and class was Wednesday. So I remember like, Josh, I got to get a bit more footage for us. Let's go. I'm going to go get this footage. You go home, you start editing. And then, so I come back like 11:30. I'm out like in the East End. I had to like subway out there, take a bus just to get to the rink, got some more horrible footage. And then come back, it's like 12:30. I'm like, he's like, I'm almost done. So we got class at 8:30, like 8 o'clock the next day in the morning. So whatever, he's still working. We got to add name plates or name tags or whatever. He's like, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, me neither. I'm like, we'll just add it in class tomorrow. We're like, no, let's just try to figure it out. So we did it. They're horrible. It's all like, each one is like in a different place. We're working off Josh's hard drive, and like, eventually, like, it's like, all right, we got to export it. Like, it's done. It's like 3:30 in the morning, and it just like Premiere just stalls. And we're like, well, that's weird. So then, like, I don't know if we just left it, and it was just kind of loading. Computer turns off, right? Like, it's plugged in, turns off. Go back on the hard drive completely cooked, lost the whole project. So this is 4 o'clock in the morning. We got class at 8, and we're freaking out. Like, Josh, if he was here, he'd tell you, like, people always say, oh, you don't take anything seriously, but I was like freaking out. Like, I'm like, we're going to fail. This is like, we got a feature to go into this show. And then I remember being like, Josh, if we stay up, it's 4:30. If we stay up, we can just finish it. Like, we can do it again. He's like, are you dumb? Like, what do you mean? This is over. We go to bed, come to class, and I kid you not, we just like, some of the guys just, were ribbing us and stuff. All the teacher said was just like, yeah, like, you just got to back up your stuff twice. That's like, all that was. It was like, you got to back it up twice. And we're like, okay, that's all right. Like, and they took another feature, put it in, and we were just like, I remember that night, we were just like, man, that's all that we we're still going to get a good mark. We put in the effort. And I remember just being like, that's where media,
the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, like, that's just the way it goes. Like,
and just for context, like, this is not just any project. This is so we did like kind of smaller shows throughout the year. we had to produce about one every week or something like that. And then for the final, we probably had like maybe 35, 40 kids in this TV lab. Legendary class, by the way. Probably one of my favorite classes in my 4 years at Ryerson, but they split the class in two. We had these two big shows. We had I think we had like 2 or 3 weeks to prepare for them. So we have a bunch of time. I'm in Max's group for this. This is like the end of year culminating project for this class. And I just remember, and for backstory, like we were supposed to shoot the same thing. So basically, like this big show had 5 or 6 features, just like the one Max had just talked about. And I remember a week earlier, we were going to shoot ours. And I had 3 people in my group. We woke up at like 5 or 6 in the morning because it was the only time that this person that we were shooting for was going to be able to shoot. And we went to France that morning just to get a good breakfast in us, like 6 in the morning maybe. And we just get a text at 6:30 like our guy is not going to be able to shoot. We're like looking a week out and we're like, well, we don't have anything for this, so this is great. Back to Max. Everyone shows up the day of the show. I don't know how we did it, but we figured out what our feature was going to be. And we just remember Max and Josh walking into the thing. And I turn around because somebody like is tapping me on the shoulder and they're like, yeah, well, Max and Josh, the premiere crashed and their 2 to 3 minute feature. That's a very important part of the show. It's just, it's not in there anymore.
And I got to give a shout to Juan, because Juan had a feature lined up. I can't remember what it was on, but it was a good feature that he used early in the semester, and we just plugged that in, and it actually worked perfectly in the show.
Perfect.
And not only that, me and Josh always say is thank God that hard drive crashed, because that was horrible what we shot. It was so bad. And, that's why, it's kind of like, because it crashed, like people can imagine that however they want it. They could think maybe it was great, but we know
60 hours into it.
Yeah.
It
the time, it's, you want to talk about, work smart, not hard. It's like we did neither, but we certainly put a lot of hours in. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
A lot of effort.
Yeah, a lot of effort.
Effort that no one saw.
A lot of jam, but not a lot of finesse. Not a lot of finesse. But man, that's great. Like we talk about those TV labs. Like you guys know, like I'm like I don't know about you guys, and Will, we've joked about TV lab, and Mose, I know you was always like working the graphics. Like for me, like I was Mr. Teleprompter, and I remember they would tell us in class like, oh, like your first job in the industry is a lot of times is going to be running coffee or like being a runner. So I remember going to the teacher and being like, well, why don't instead of doing teleprompter, like, why don't I just go get all the talent coffee today? Like that's my job. Of course they didn't let me do it, but like I mean, like I was terrified of like live production. Like I was terrified of doing the switcher. I remember I'd be in the audio booth. Sometimes that was okay, but if maybe I was fine on air. Like I did it, but producer, director, like counting backwards, these counts, like I couldn't understand any of this.
Oh, assistant director was the worst. The timer one, my heart would be racing when I got forced on there.
And I was pretty. Honestly, my best skill in that class was like honestly hanging around in the background so that they wouldn't
shadow boxing.
Like just shadow boxing, like just kind of like, and I like they'd be like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "I'll do teleprompter." Like honestly, but then I was like, "Well, okay, like if I'm going to do something, I actually was fine with producer because I feel like I could kind of conceptualize a show, and also like writing a script is something like I feel like that I liked writing and that. But besides that, like it was really like that. It was plug and play on the teleprompter. I was the. And I remember like, that's one of those things where you're doing it. And like, if you're not paying attention to what they're saying, you're going to get yelled at for going too fast and too slow. You're going to
sewer the talent.
You're going to hear it. So I certainly heard it. So, but I
think that's the best part of live for me. It was just like the day of, everyone has to be so dialed in. And not that I like seeing other people fail, but it's just the memories that stick out in my mind, at least 2 years later or a year later after graduating, were times when the assistant director or the switcher just missed the button or missed the count for whatever reason. And then everyone in the room kind of knew that they were just going to get chewed out. And it's not a great thing, but it was just like those memories will just stick with me forever. When somebody messed up or somebody didn't get something right, and it just the wheels on the train for all intents and purposes fell off.
Yeah, and that's when I think that those classes kind of separated people. It's like, well, what do you really want to do? Because for me, I couldn't, like, I still couldn't wrap my head around a 6-hour class. Like, I can't sit still. Like, I can't, like, for, you know what I mean? Like, for any amount of time, really past like 10 minutes. And then, like, and some people, that's not even like, I think I used to be cynical in that class and be like, but like some people, people loved it. And, that's like obviously a part of sports. But man, 6 hours, like you're just going at it for 6 hours. You're doing rundowns, you're doing practices. You were going to take a break for lunch and we're going to come back and do it from the top. And it was
that lunch break was all time. That was what I was looking forward to. I don't know about you. Yeah, Max, you got caught in that 8 o'clock TV lab, which was just horrendous to wake up for.
Yeah,
that was and you had to commute, which was probably even worse. I just rolled out of bed and then took a 10-minute walk to class.
I live near Barrie, right? So I mean,
you're up in Aurelia.
Yeah, I'm up in Baywater. I'm in near Baywater, near Owen Sound. No, I'm like, yeah. So I gotta take a bus to get to the subway, but yeah, it's especially in the cold. Subway into school, it's not fun. And those TV labs, like especially if you, like I said, even if the hard drive didn't crash, there were just some times where you knew maybe you had a big job where you're like, oh, I don't know if you were producing something, like, I don't know how good this is going to be. You got to go in for 6 hours. And, it's not like that you're waiting at the end. They're going to see it. It's like, no, we're going to see it
right away.
7 times right away. Like what's, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was, and people, but like, I got to commend people who love that class, like, power to them, because obviously like that's their shtick, certainly not mine, but
I think you and I, Max, connected on not liking that class, and I think when it hit 4th year, like we were just loopy. Like, we'll do any feature, like commercials, like we'll do all the like EFP stuff, which is like just like shooting video that you edit and put on. And then when we were in class, like I'll never forget just like hiding in the back, shadow boxing each other.
The shadow boxing, like just having but not even like stuff, like we were never doing stuff that's like egregious, like, you know what I mean? We were just doing like just dicking around in class, and just like we loved it because we did so much work before we submitted our thing, and then we could just sit back and relax.
You just knew that you were good.
Yeah,
you knew that you were gonna get a good mark.
It was great. Yeah, like and yeah, it was great. I gotta give a shout out to Karen too, Sebestis, because she. And
she ran a tight ship.
Yeah, like, I shout out to like, Joe, obviously we had TV lab, and like, I think honestly, like they all like to be that dialed in, and obviously like the whole team, like Withers, Sykes, like the amount of like, just to think in retrospect, the amount of like hours they had to put in for us and for all those classes is just crazy to me. And they're so invaluable. But like Karen, obviously like she understood that like me, you, Will, like in 4th year, like what we want to do. And she like really supported that. Was also genuinely curious, like what we were doing.
But at first she was like, I think she told you or me to my face, she's like, yeah, I thought Will was like a lost cause.
Yeah, Karen just, she definitely, like, she was blunt. She called it like it was. And yeah, and she, I just remember sitting in like, I remember like we were in the room, me and her and a couple, we were in that other studio, and like with all like the switcher and the audio. And we were just like swapping our favorite souvlaki restaurants on the Danforth. And like, you know what I mean? Like people are just like, obviously like, because we've done the features, I'm just like so checked out, and we're just talking, about Greek food, and then talking about like, just like, school and other stuff. And it was great. I remember that,
I want to go into that. Like your like buzz is so high, and like some people say, like you don't take stuff seriously, or like,
well, I don't,
a jokester, but like,
yeah,
I get that side, but the amount of things that you've like hooked me up with, or you've hooked both of us up with through you hanging out, relating with people on like, food places or hockey and whatnot. Like, I want you to talk about like the relationships you've built through that. Like,
I think sorry.
Like we go into the GTHL office and like we like hang out. Like they like when we come, mainly you.
They like you too.
Yeah, of course. But like, it's like this buzz you bring, this hang you bring, it almost like sets us up for retaining these clients, them being excited that we come in and pitch work. Like, I think
Yeah.
they trust us based off of like a personal level beyond
Yeah.
work.
Well, I think a couple of things, like you guys know, and Will knows firsthand, like, you know, and I know you guys have had guys on the podcast who are very hard workers, and I don't want to say that that's a little different with me, but what I will say is like that's obviously something that I need to get better at, is consistently, put in the effort. But for me, it's always been enthusiasm of what we're doing, and like I said, like enthusiasm about just hockey. Like I play, obviously COVID has kind of put a wrench in that, but normally I'm playing hockey like 4 or 5 times a week, and guys will ask me, even if they're not, necessarily negative, but they're just like, oh, why do you play so often? Like, what's really the benefit? I'm like, well, obviously, like, but beyond the fact that I like playing hockey, like I tell people, like, in the business that we're in, like, you wanna like make money, you want to have clients, you want to have projects, you got to get to know people. And like the amount of people I've been connected to by playing hockey has been crazy. And then the amount of people that I meet at the rinks, like scouts, agents, media personalities, like just the amount of, like, the sheer amount of people that I met. Like a good example of that is, man, so my year off, like, because I kind of get the reins, like we started Don Mills Flyers, we started all the social media accounts, and I'm just running it. So in my head, I'm like, well, how could I make this beneficial for them and beneficial for me, like stuff that I could do. So I reach out to Peter, and I say, like, hey Peter, like, why don't I go NHL practices and interview some Don Mills Flyers alumni? He's like, it's a great idea. So I'm like, okay, like how do I get into the building? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who am I? What have I done? So we got a guy, Greg, who used to work for Don Mills. Now he works at the Leafs, works at, like he works with all their, youth initiatives, and like he runs a lot of their, like, summer camps and stuff, and works with alumni and stuff. So we reach out to Greg, and I'm like, hey, Greg, Max here with the Don Mills Flyers. I know you used to be with the organization. Can we get Max like a press pass? So I'm like, all right, like I'm happy than a pig in shit, right? Like I get to go to the Leafs practice, just hang around. But I'm terrified too, because I've never been, like, I don't know what to do. Right. So I'd like dress up. I'm wearing like those like newsboy hats that, I wear. I like wear my Don Mills Flyers jacket. Like I'm all like, I got a tripod, a camera. I'm all ready to go. Like, and I'm thinking I'm going to get like a one-on-one with Darnell Nurse, who played for Don Mills, and he's playing for Edmonton. This is 2015, 2016. So this is McDavid's rookie year, Connor McDavid. I guess I should say the full name. And he broke his collarbone. So he's been rehabbing in Toronto, but he's rejoining the team to fly out. So I remember getting there, and like they kind of, the guy, security guy, looks at me, like looks at my pass. He's like, all right, like, yeah, you're on the list. I'm just standing around, whatever, and like with my gear, and I kind of see the Leafs PR guy, and I can't remember his name, just like dressed in like a beautiful suit, like, I'm like, this is the National League, you know what I mean? Like I'm like I'm in too deep. And like I start talking to him, like, hey, thanks for having me, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just like, you think being nice, but like imagine going up to a PR guy, like, like obviously all the other guys, it's like they're not going up thanking because that's their job. I mean, like, I'm like, thanking him, whatever. And he's like, just so you know, if McDavid was playing, you would not be here. Like, there's no way you'd be here, right? He just says that. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, but because he's like not. So whatever, like I'm just kind of walking around, but you know what I mean? I go to the media room, there's free drinks, free donuts. Like I'm just eating, I'm having like 2 chocolate glazed donuts and ginger ale, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
you're
like,
double fisting.
yeah, like that's
there's no hands for the camera at this point.
no,
You're
no.
not
I'm like,
working.
it's strapped. Yeah, like I dropped it down, and I see like I'm just eating or whatever. There's like a game notes. And I'm like, I'm not going to the game, but I'll pick up the game notes, kind of like see what's up. I see like, who's who of like Toronto sport media, and I'm just like, oh, like, there's, Bob, there's maybe Bob McKenzie or Pierre LeBrun, and then like we're in the room, like, all right, like, and then like the PR guy comes in and says, all right, like we're talking, the media's talking. And I'm like, oh, so I'm like, I guess I'm allowed to stay. And like Babcock walks in, and like he starts doing his presser, and like I'm just like just standing there. Of course, I'm not gonna ask a question, like whatever. I'm waiting for Darnell Nurse, so like I'm just standing there. It finishes, whatever. I'm in the hallway, and like I kind of like just see someone walk by me. Like, oh, it's like, oh, there's Connor McDavid. because he's rejoining the team, and then he's going to do a press conference. So I'm like, okay, I'll jump in on this too. Like, I think for me, it's like I was never like awestruck. It was not just like, oh, like that's them. It was more just like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like, just like I'm not like, I'm just here along for the ride. And then I remember this like funny is like, because Connor McDavid's agency, Bobby Orr runs the agency, and like I went over and like I see Elliot Friedman, and I think I've met him before, so I kind of introduced myself. We start talking, and then the assistant coach at Edmonton walks over. They start talking, and like the assistant coach actually played for Don Mills, so I start talking to him as well. And then Bobby Orr walks by, shakes my hand. He starts talking to them, looks at me, and then they just start kind of talking. And like there's like a triangle, and they kind of form this triangle, and I kind of just fade into the background. So I'm just like, all right. And then like
dust on your
donut.
shirt.
Just like I'm just like looking, and like then I go. So then like it's like the Leafs just got off, so like media get to go in the dressing room. So I'm like, oh, here we go. Like me, I love gear. So I'm just like I'm literally standing in the hallway looking at all the sticks. I'm not even like I don't give a shit about anything else. And I remember just like going and being in the dressing room, like this is what it is. And you just see like 13 media members around the goalie, who was Garrett Sparks, who was making his debut. And I remember just like, I remember this because like a couple ex-Leaf, Leo Komarov and Sean Mathias, I remember like they just staring at me because I'm just standing in the middle of the room, like near the logo, like, I was just like a fine, you know what I mean? I'm just standing there. I'm just like, what am I doing here? So then so like we finally get Edmonton's done, and like, I'm like talking to the Edmonton PR guy who I emailed, and I'm like, hey, like I want to get like a video of Darnell Nurse and like ask him a couple of questions. It's like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but just jump in on the scrum. And I'm like, what do you mean jump in on the scrum? Like go in and like ask him a question with the other reporters. So I got to go in the dressing room, and I'm terrified, right? Like what do I do? Right. So I go in and like, I'm just like, ask the questions. And like, I remember I just like fumbled out some questions, and I remember being like, damn, like you start questioning, like, were they good questions? Like, and I remember I asked him about Don Mills, and it was actually great because everyone was asking the usual questions about the game tonight, being back home. And I remember asking him about just Don Mills, and he kind of his face lit up, and he was kind of like, kind of just excited to talk about like the team he played for. And I remember actually what kind of, made it all worth it was one of the, I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys who worked for the Toronto Star, like wrote an article for the, like submitted his article for the day about the game, and like used one of the questions I asked, and one of his quotes from me about in his story. And I remember just being like, it was kind of like all these funny stories of me like being out of place and stuff. But like, then it was just like, oh, like, this kind of is all, this is all worth it, It's kind of like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and to get that experience at such a, young.
Yeah, like you mentioned McDavid, I think this is a funny clip that I have like the raw footage of. Remember when we were at the Power Edge Pro Camp and we interviewed like a bunch of these guys? Like, how nerve-wracking was it for you? I know I was pretty nervous when we're going to get a one-on-one interview with McDavid. Like, only us and his like PR guy. Like, yeah. Do you remember that experience?
But 2018 was when we went shot with Power Edge Pro, this training group. And we kind of reached out to them and shout out to them. They're, we love working with them. And I think Nick and Joe, they just run such a, great organization, but they're also just like, a family run thing. It's just great to see. And they kind of were like, hey, like, we want you to do some interviews with some guys. We're like, okay, like, let's go. Like, we're ready. Like, we kind of stepped up our game. We put the money in, we got lights, I think we were still using a garbage can to kind of like prop our lights. If I remember correctly,
to prop something up. We were propping a couple things up with garbage cans and makeshift items.
Yeah. So, but I remember this because like, we interviewed like a couple NHLers, and then like, we're like, throughout the week, we're like, we were shooting McDavid, and they're like, we want you to get McDavid. McDavid, like his other agents were there, and we're kind of like, all right, like, are we going to get him? Like, we're all set up in the room, and all the other guys I interviewed, like, we just told them briefly what the questions were. Very easy. They were all like, I think everyone for the most part was dialed in, and like they were fairly easy questions. And we were working with Power Edge Pro and also the GTHL making a video, and then McDavid comes finally, like, we're like, oh, are we going to get him? Blah, blah, blah. And like, all right, you got 5 minutes with him. They're like, all right, like we can do that. So his media guy kind of comes over and is like, yeah, like just, I'm going to be in the room and I'm going to I'm going to make sure let me see the questions before. I'm going to make sure everything's fine. After that, I want you to send it to me, make sure everything's fine. And then I'll sign off and then you can use the footage. Like, all right, like, okay, this is a little different than what we're used to. So I remember him sitting down and like, of course, like, he had been doing media stuff the whole week. Well, not with other people, but he had just been doing separate shoots. And I remember he was just like exhausted, I'm sure. And he was just so nonplussed to be there. And I remember it's crazy, like, you tell people that like you interview McDavid. And I'm like, it's not like people got to realize, like, at least from my perspective, I think yours, like, I think we've always had that mentality. It's like, this guy is just the same age as us. And he's just the best hockey player in the world. You know what I mean? There's like, for me, at least I had to have that mentality that when I'm interviewing him, it's like, the difference between me and him is obviously huge. It's like he's amazing at hockey and he's a professional hockey player, but we're still the same age. It's just like, just make it natural. Like we can't be like fun. You know what I mean?
He's just a guy who's really good at hockey. Like It's not, you can't treat it as though he's like some deity or like super special guy across the board. But I think you're missing one thing in the story. Remember when he sat down, what did he ask his PR?
Oh, he asked,
this is like, so funny.
Oh, he is just like, hey Adam, you got the boots tickets? Like you got those, you know what I mean? And he's just like, because
Boots and Hearts tickets.
Yeah, Boots and Hearts. He's like, made sure you had those in order. I remember he like looked and then kind of looked at me and was just like, you could just tell like I'd rather be anywhere but here right now. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of especially dealing with younger players who get kind of excited to be on camera the first time, or they get nervous. But then the older guys, some guys will give you the time of the day. Like for example, someone like and it's just there's no, I never fault any players because they get, especially McDavid, having to do so much media stuff. Like
he was so checked out. I noticed he was like, I was trying to like fix the framing so it was perfect because I was nervous. I'm like, we need to nail like the audio and video for this like perfectly.
Yeah. And we got 5 minutes or less.
We got 5 minutes or less. So he gets in there. I'm like, hey man, like shake his hand, like you doing good, blah blah blah. Yeah, take a seat here. And like he wasn't aligned properly in the shot, and I'm like, oh, I just need to move the chair, man. And he literally just goes, okay. He gets up like this much, like maybe like 6 inches off the chair. I have to like reach around his ass to like move the chair. It was just like such a weird experience. Yeah. But then after that, we had Jack Hughes in, which I think was a funny.
Oh,
was a funny.
This is, I guess, this is like going into his draft year. Of course, Jack, phenomenal hockey player, and like I remember seeing, I remember following him in the GTHL, and we didn't interview his brother Quinn, but Jack kind of came in and like I think he knew, guys know how good they are, and some guys are, and it's not a question of like humble or cocky, but I think some guys, they know that like that they're the top guys, and I think Jack knows he's a top guy, and he kind of came in, and I remember the first thing. We wearing a hat. We're like, all right, can you take the hat off? Just takes the hat off, throws it across the room, and
like he like just like took it off like this and just went.
Oh,
he didn't even look. He just goes
Yeah.
And I had to like go pick it up and like move it.
Yeah, like he just like his hair was all wild and just like and then like I can't remember that interview that well. I just remember him just being like, I just remember him just kind of like blowing us off and like like that's just like the facts. I guess what's gonna happen. Like yeah, like obviously I think when guys get older, like I've been fortunate enough to like actually Joel Ward, who also played for Dodd Mills, and another guy who I got to actually go to another Leafs like this morning skate and interview him, and like just the fact that he came over, introduced himself, we had like a 10-minute conversation, and then I saw him another time at BioSteel camp at St. Mike's Arena the next year, and like he remembered. I mean, something like it's like remembered you, and it's not like a small things like that. I think remembering you, like it's not as much like, oh, an NHL player remembers you. It's more like, oh, like I can go over, talk to him, I'm a bit more comfortable. I know like someone recognized me, and like people see that they're like, this isn't just some random kid. Especially as a younger guy, like when you go to these things like BioSteel camp, when you have like McDavid, Sagan, like Tom Wilson, Darnell Nurse, like Taylor Hall, like these big names in hockey, like to have someone like Joel Ward to come over and just introduce him, like say hi again and catch up for 30 seconds. It's just like, it just helps you like makes you legitimate in their eyes. And it's good thing that happened, because if it wasn't there, then every year I go there, security is always like, who are you? Like, what, I don't see your name on the list. Like, so it's until you really make a name for yourself, and like, you're always going to get, dirty, I don't say dirty looks, but people are going to look at you weird and who is this guy? And that's just kind of the process of kind of working through and, being around the rink and doing that.
And you being around the rink has like helped you and I do so much more with like our video. For example, like I don't know how you met up with Paul Coffey, who's like coaching one of the teams. You started buzzing with them, and like he like loved you, like your like energy. And it opened us up. Like, I'm waiting to get into that story, but also it opened us up to get into his team's dressing room, like zero issues. Just like, he's like, yeah, whatever, like, come in, let's go. Like, it was just building these relationships opens us up to so much opportunity.
Yeah, Paul, he coached GTHL, and he with the Toronto Marlies, and I didn't really know him. I always saw everyone. He'd been in the league for years, and I remember like just talking to him, I introduced myself, and then like I can't remember like.
What did you say to him? You said like, "Oh, you probably know me, I'm Max," or something.
Yeah. I went up. I was like, you probably recognize me around the rink, and he's like, looked at me. He's like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Just right straight up. But he was laughing, and like I got another story about that after, about something like that. But
wait, before you keep going, sorry to interrupt again, but no. I remember when you brought me over, because like, oh, I'm like producing. He's the video guy. He's just like. Paul Coffey's like, hey, my name's Paul, yeah. Do you believe this guy? He said, do I know him or something? Yeah. Like, I was like,
yeah, and I was like,
so
yeah,
Max.
It's just like, yeah, it was just like, obviously like a Hall of Fame or whatever, like, but again, like he just, I guess because of that, we started talking, and then like every time we'd see him at the rink, we would just talk for like 10, 15 minutes about hockey or whatever. And I remember just like we had him in the Marlies room. We were like shooting some stuff, and like he just started pulling out old stuff from like his Oilers days and like Team Canada days and like the Team Canada teams from like the 80s and stuff. And just like, like I always say, like, it's obviously like the money's sometimes just a bonus for me. You know what I mean? Like me and Will, like we're definitely like of the two, who's the more business focused. I don't need to answer that one, because I think we know who. But just getting to be able to sit with someone like Paul Coffey, and just like me being like a hockey nerd and just loving the history of the game, just being able to sit down and just hear those stories, and just like it's just great. And I think it's funny you mentioned about like kind of like putting your foot in your mouth and having being beneficial. Obviously, I think you guys remember this story. We had like a mixer at Sportsnet. You guys remember this mixer?
Mm-hmm.
Remember we went down to the studios, and I was like, I remember talking with Josh before we went together. I'm like, do we wear a suit for this? Like, do I got to wear a suit? And it's kind of like, well, probably everyone's going to be wearing a suit. So it's like, okay, so then I'll wear a suit. You know what I mean? But like, I wasn't, whatever. And actually, it's funny, we talk shit, but we went to Subway. Me and Josh went to Subway before going to this thing.
Damage? What did you get? You remember?
Oh, man, I used to get like, when I go to Subway, I'm the type of guy to get like a pizza sub. And then I'm like, I always tell them, like, whatever you think is a lot of black olives, double it.
No, I hate olives. Fun fact. Can't stand
them. Olives. So I remember that. And then I remember going and like, I got these business cards from Don Mills. Like it's got my name on it, it says communications manager. And I remember like, I had a couple in my wallet, like just handing them out. And like, I remember going to the mixer after, and like, I was just like, it was, this isn't a slight on anyone, I think that obviously like the environment was that like really, like there was all these Sportsnet personalities there to talk to. But I think like, I guess a lot of people, and like, it's a competitive industry. People are looking to, make a name for themselves, like introduce themselves, give business cards. So I was like, I'm not going to hand out business cards. And, and then eventually like Scott Moore, the president of Sportsnet, like he's over there, and like, he's kind of talking like, so I was like, what, I'll give my business card to the president. Like, why not? So I don't know if you guys have seen the American Psycho, the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't, if you know me, I've talked to, there's just a famous scene with the business card where so I kind of give him my business card, and he's like, oh, like, who are you? And like, I'm like, and then I kind of mumble something, slur my words as per usual. And I make some joke about, my business card. And like, I was like, from American Psycho, he didn't get the reference. He's like, oh, Don Mills Flyers. Like, we start talking, he's like, oh, you work for them? Like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, like, how do you know them? He's like, yeah, like, I know them a long time. I'm like, oh, like, does your grandson play for them?
Oh, no.
And he used to say, oh, my grandson. And I'm like, so I was like, I didn't think anything of it. So he comes to our class like second semester
a year later. I think it was a year later.
A year later.
Full
comes
year
to our class a year later. And, you know, he's talking to us because we had all the industry, you know, TSN Sports and CBC come in and talk to us. And like at the end, he's like, oh, like, does anyone here work for Don Mills? And like, of course, like,
the class erupts.
Everyone turns and looks at Max.
Everyone looks at me and I'm like, yeah, like, what? He's like, just want to let you know, like, you're never getting a job like ever in this city. Like, just joking, but like, you know, like, because he's like, he brought, like, you said, he's like, because you said I was a grandfather, and I remember like, I was just like, Josh beside me was just laughing hysterically, and like I was laughing too. But what's funny was, and I don't sound like I fought, like this isn't like some story now where like I work in sports, and obviously Scott Moore left sports, but like I remember like people were laughing, but also like, I guess in a way I had gotten recognized, and like he remembered me a year later, which was like, I like to do that, you know, with someone like that, which is crazy to me that like you can just, you know, flub like that. But that's honestly what it takes, and what it comes back to what I think is like and I'm not at a point in my career, I'm not old enough to give advice, I don't think, to anyone. But if I were to give any advice, I'd just say like, you got to be passionate, but you just got to be a good guy. And like, whether that is like being self-deprecating, whether that's like making a bad joke, like, you know, that's obviously flubbing and, you know, slipping up, but like, you just got to roll with the punches, and you got to be like friendly with people. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is that these relationships, I just genuinely love making them at the rink, at wherever I'm working. And that's how we get, I think, a lot of our business and a lot of our clients.
And on top of that, like, I think I talked about this in one of my YouTube videos. It's like, you should talk to them about the work and everything, but also like get to know the client or the person you're working with. Like, ask them how their day is going, bring up a food joint that's nearby, like what you do. And like, just like going the extra mile to be a good guy outside of just like making sure like you provide the service properly. That's the biggest thing I noticed.
And I think, like, you know, obviously we talk work ethic, like, you know, it's not, I don't think, clarify, there's never an issue with deadlines. Like, if I'm writing an article, if I'm doing a video, like, it's on time. And if I got to do the work, I will. It's like the consistent day-to-day improving that I got to, you know, work on. But it really comes down to like, are you a good person? Like, do they trust you? Do they, like, certain extent, do they like you? Like, just as long as they respect you and like you're clear with them and you build some relationship, then it just makes everything easier.
Yeah. I think we should close out on this. Where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years? I know COVID's obviously put a
where do I see myself going?
But like, we'll be working with each other. But
I see myself going to, you know, California sandwiches. No, our goals, I think, you know, me and you, and I think now that we've gotten Mose more involved too with graphics and stuff, like with some projects, like we love what we do at the GTHL. Like, I think the biggest thing is the freedom we have and kind of how we've been able to kind of grow, and like, you know, experiment with stuff. I think for us, you know, if you'd asked me 4 years ago or even 3 years ago, like, you know, and obviously it was a big thing for me separate of the video stuff is the writing, and I love writing, but, you know, obviously like working at a big network obviously was at some point on everyone's mind. And I know Mose, you've worked there, and Will, like, you know, we've been around it, you know, worked in, you know, in sports in the sense like we worked with people there. But honestly, like, you see like the rise of just like NHL, like athletes looking to create their own YouTube channels, or, you know, just stuff like that. Like, that's where I see, I want to be like, you know, like working with players. I want to be like, I'll maybe even want to get into PR. I want to be working maybe with an agency, helping, you know, helping guys like develop their brand, or like working at looking at the work in their social media, or like helping them get endorsements, or, you know, like getting photos of them playing or working out or whatever. Like, you know, just kind of like, I love just the player side and just like the personalities.
You like the individual.
Yeah, I like the individual
focus.
And maybe also, I also do like working, like, you know, working with the team would be great. I think for us, again, it just like, you know, really, you know, I think a big thing working with an organization is you got to kind of get, you know, like there's no bias, but obviously working with the team, you can kind of just, you know, this is the team. We're gonna like just promote them as much as possible. If I'm working with an agency, they have like, let's say I'm working with a rep who's got 4 or 5 kids he represents. Like I'm focusing on those 4 and 5 kids to promote their brands, promote them. That's where I see myself at least, and that's where I see the money in the industry. If obviously want to make a living doing this, not just fun and games. Like that's where I see the money being, and I think I know based on what you guys have talked about on the podcast, I think you guys would agree. Personal brands and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of the show.
Right.
Max, you want to plug your Instagram? I think there's some quality content on there for our viewers to see.
Yeah, Max.
Don't give anyone else your password.
MaxL58.
There it is.
All right.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, boys.
Thanks, Max. Just so everyone knows, like we're posting a lot more content on our Instagram, stepping up our game. So why don't you give us a follow at Render and Repeat Podcast on Instagram. The same things on Twitter and YouTube. All right. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the pod. Ciao.